9. Shoyo sat cross-legged on Kei's bed, looking rather anxious as he sipped his coffee. Kei took a final bite of the omelette and wiped his mouth with a napkin. I feel like such a klutz eating left-handed. That's because you are a klutz. Shoyo tucked the towel he'd used to soak up spilled orange juice behind him. When we find you a real boyfriend, he'll have to like your money because ambidexterity sure isn't a selling point. Kei laughed and attempted to hit Shoyo with his napkin. Fuck you. Never. Shoyo winked. Well, your next real boyfriend can love you for your cooking. That omelette was. Stop messing with me. Just tell me. Kei tried to hide his amusement, his lips curling up at the corners. He knew Shoyo was going all kinds of crazy, wondering if Tadashi had liked his idea. Getting on a primetime show would change everything for him, even if it turned out to be a short-term gig. Kei cleared his throat and pursed his lips together, trying to look serious. He didn't like your pitch. He didn't? Shoyo's shoulders fell. Damn it. No, he didn't like it at all. I thought for sure. Kei held back a chuckle. He wanted to keep up the charade. But Shoyo looked so downtrodden he just didn't have the heart. He didn't like it. He loved it. Shoyo's eyes widened. You are such an asshole. He threw the wet towel at Kei, who burst out laughing. Sorry. Your face though. Shut up. So, for real? And you like the idea too? It's the 6th season. We need to shake things up a bit. So this is kind of perfect. The idea wasn't just growing on Kei. He was fully embracing it. Shoyo was right. Kei wouldn't have to make such a big deal of his coming out process. And that alone would lift a huge weight off his shoulders. If this worked, it would be seamless. No interviews, just a natural process that would slowly unfold in front of America's eyes. It was brilliant. Can you make sure they give the part to me and not someone else? Kei sensed the fear and insecurity in Shoyo's voice. Afraid that he'd somehow be left out of the equation. It was understandable, since it happened all the time in Hollywood. Actors were at the mercy of directors and producers and their little whims. One day you're their favorite and the next, you don't have a job. Don't worry about that, Kei said, trying to reassure him. They'll think they're doing me a favor by casting you in a few episodes. After that, it's up to us to get the audience invested in looks that linger a little too long and banter that seems just a bit too flirty. So, you're all in? Shoyo waited expectantly for an answer. Kei gave him a nod. Yep. All in. Yes. Shoyo threw himself back on the bed and kicked his legs in the air. Then he sat back up and jumped off the bed. I'll be right back. He came back in the room a few seconds later holding a black marker in his hand. Kei tilted his head. What do you plan on doing with that? I'm going to sign your cast. Who knows? My autograph might be worth something someday. No. Kei covered his cast with his other arm. I've seen how you sign your name. Your autograph sucks. Shoyo sat on the bed and took the cap off the marker. Come on, Kei. I had a cast when I was 11 and all my friends signed it. If you have a signature-less cast, people might think you have no friends. Or, maybe they'll take an even bigger leap and assume that I'm an adult. Shoyo pouted, so Kei reluctantly moved his arm. Fine, but you're the only one who signs my cast. Shoyo leaned in and furrowed his brow as if he were really focusing hard on his task. Nata. He sat back and gave an affirming nod. Perfect. You now have one friend. Kei smiled, wondering if Shoyo really meant it. The next few days went smoothly. They had the routine down by then. Breakfast first, so Kei could take his pain meds. After that, Shoyo would put the laptop in front of him so he could check his emails. Sometimes it took too long for him to reply with only one working hand. So Shoyo would type while Kei dictated. After that, Kei would rest and watch one of the cable news channels while Shoyo did the household chores. Then, about an hour before lunch, Shoyo would go back up to the bedroom and get Kei showered and dressed in clean pajamas. Ready to shower? Kei waved Shoyo into his bedroom. Please. I'm so hot. Open a window. This room is stifling. You are, actually, kind of hot. You know, for in. Shoyo pulled the curtains back and opened the sliding glass door, letting in a cool breeze. Were you going to say older man? Because I'm only a few years older than you. Kei winced as he tried to stand up. He tried to stretch but immediately bent over in pain. Damn. Shoyo grabbed Kei's good arm. What's wrong? Kei slowly straightened back up. Pain racking his entire body. I'm just so sore from all this lying around. My back is killing me. My neck is killing me. Everything hurts. I know what you need. Shoyo went to the closet and came back out with a bathing suit hanging from one finger. There's a perfectly good hot tub out back. Kei stood at the edge of the hot tub with his cast covered in plastic. Are you sure? A shower is one thing. But this? Shoyo stepped in first and turned around. Holding his hands out. Jump to me, baby. Kei stuck a toe in. I'm not jumping. Shoyo took a step back, feeling glad that he could make Kei laugh through the pain. Fine. Do it your way. Shoyo admired Kei's body. His eyes wandered up to Kei's chest. Toned lean muscles shone in the sun. Shoyo folded his arms and waited. There was nothing wrong with looking. Was there? And even though the man aggravated him to no end, Shoyo's fake boyfriend/roommate/patient was still hot. Are you sure this plastic bag is going to hold? Kei hesitantly put one foot in the water. Shoyo offered his hand as Kei took another step. I used waterproof tape and wrapped it solid. Just trust me, okay? Kei took Shoyo's hand and lowered himself into the hot tub. God, that feels good. Shoyo helped Kei sit against one of the jets. You good? He didn't let go of Kei's hand until he was sure he was stable. Yeah, so good. Kei closed his eyes. This is heaven. He scooted down a little bit so his neck was fully submerged. Shoyo sat on the opposite side, his arms out of the water, resting on the edge. He watched carefully, ready to pounce if Kei sank too low in the water. See? You should listen to me once in a while. I listen to your annoying voice all day long. Do this. Eat that. Take your meds. Wipe your own ass. It's for your own good. Especially the ass wiping. As for the meds, you can't let that shit wear off. Or have you forgotten how bad the pain can get? Almost. Kei smiled, keeping his eyes shut. Thanks to you. You're welcome. Shoyo leaned back and closed his eyes too. He was grateful that they'd managed to find a good rhythm. Kei was healing, and he felt comfortable and safe with Shoyo in his home. He'd earned Kei's trust, and that made Shoyo happy. After soaking for 10 minutes, Shoyo had Kei sit on the end of one of the lounge chairs so he could rub his back. He straddled the chair behind him and poured some lotion into his hand. Why are you being so nice to me today? Kei suppressed a moan when Shoyo's warm hand ran up his back and over his shoulders. Oh please, I've been nice to you this whole time. And besides, I need you up and moving so we can get to work. The good kind of work. With a script and camera. That's assuming the producers are okay with adding you. Kei leaned forward as much as he could without hurting his arm so Shoyo could reach his lower back. Yeah, or all of this kindness was for nothing. Kei stiffened at the comment and tried to stand up. But Shoyo held him down. I'm kidding. He rested his chin on Kei's shoulder. Tell me you know I'm kidding. Kei nodded. He wasn't sure why the comment bothered him so much. That's what he'd hired Shoyo for, wasn't it? He needed a fake boyfriend. Not a real one. He needed emotional detachment. This stupid accident didn't have to change that. Did it? As if all of a sudden, he's so vulnerable and needy that his hired boyfriend needs to show genuine concern? Bullshit. Shoyo was doing his job, including the rubbing of Kei's good arm. God, it felt nice. Kei accidentally moaned out loud. Shoyo dug in a little deeper on his back muscles, eliciting another moan. He worked the muscles as best he could and then ran his hands up and down Kei's entire back a few more times. His hands landed on Kei's waist and froze there for a moment. Feel a little better? A gentleness in his voice that wasn't usually there. Yeah, thanks. That was great. Why don't you go take a shower while you still have the wrap on your cast? Shoyo's hands hadn't moved. Kei could feel the goosebumps forming on his skin. under Shoyo's hands and all over his body. It had been a long time since anyone, had touched him this much. Actually, no one in recent memory had touched him this much. Or this thoroughly. With all of the caregiving. Where hadn't Shoyo touched him in the last 2 weeks? Well, one place. But pretty much everywhere else. His hands had come close a couple times. It wasn't awful. Kei wondered if maybe it was asking too much of someone who was also gay. Was it possible that Shoyo was enjoying all of this touching? And how should Kei feel about it if he was? Then he remembered all the indignities that went into being his caregiver. Shoyo was definitely not getting off on this. You okay? The hands on Kei's waist slowly moved to his shoulders and gave a little squeeze. Kei put his face in his hand and started to cry. Hey, what's wrong? Kei shook his head. This must suck so hard for you. I'm sorry you have to do every little goddamn thing for me. He looked at the sky and let out a big sob. God, I'm such an asshole. A helpless fucking asshole. Hey now. Shoyo pulled Kei into his arms. You are not an asshole. You're just hurting and tired. And yes, being helpless sucks. Kei sobbed even harder. Freshly showered and wrapped in a fluffy white towel. Kei sat on the edge of the bed. Thanks for earlier. Shoyo carefully pulled off the waterproof tape. You've been through a lot. It's okay to cry it out sometimes. He'd held Kei for a good 10 minutes while he sobbed out his pain and frustration. Shoyo hadn't realized just how hard the situation was for Kei. He wasn't reveling in being weighted on hand and foot. He hated every second of it. He hated having to ask for help. Hated being at the mercy of someone else. He felt out of control and it made him angry. Knowing that made things a little easier for Shoyo. This wasn't a power play. Even though it sometimes felt that way. Almost got it. He pulled the plastic bag off and wadded up the tape. Okay, you're all set. Thank you. Kei met Shoyo's gaze. He gave him a slow, easy smile. I feel so much better. Almost human again. Shoyo smiled back. Kei looked so contrite and so cute with his black eye that had turned a purplish-greenish color. His eyes fell to Kei's lips. They were no longer dry and chapped. They looked soft and... Shoyo quickly shook those thoughts from his head. No problem. Brandon fucking Cartwright knows his shit. You talk to your mother with that mouth? Kei quipped. Shoyo's gaze fell to the floor. Why don't you ever talk about your mom? There it was, the question Shoyo had been avoiding. But he couldn't avoid it forever. He sucked in air. She died when I was 16. But I don't like to talk about it. I'm sorry. I didn't. I shouldn't have. Shoyo couldn't. Even if he wanted to. He couldn't talk about his mom. Lunch will be ready soon. He quickly left the room and closed Kei's bedroom door. Leaning against it as tears made themselves known. Shoyo hastily wiped them away and went downstairs. He started pulling vegetables from the fridge to make a salad. The tears came even harder as he sliced tomatoes and cucumbers. Tears and knives weren't a good combination. He sat the knife down and put both palms on the counter. A sob worked its way up his chest. It was Shoyo who had taken care of his mother those last 3 months of her life. He'd taken a leave from the show so he could watch the woman who gave birth to him slowly slip away. Cooking, bathing, managing meds, and taking the train with her to doctor's appointments. Everything he was doing for Kei. He'd already done for his mother. But with a very different end result. He'd pushed it away. The similarities. But the memories were always right there under the surface. I miss you, he whispered as he grated a carrot. I miss you so much. Kei walked into the kitchen in a short gray robe. Shoyo glanced up at him as he put the finishing touches on the salad. I thought we'd eat outside. Shoyo hoped Kei wouldn't notice his red, puffy eyes. Who designated this National Crying Day anyway? Shoyo just wanted to move on from it. He hoped Kei did too. I didn't feel like getting dressed. He stole a cucumber slice from the bowl. Also, I want to sleep naked tonight. So you're just going to have to deal. Shoyo snorted as he slid Kei's pain pills across the counter. Whatever. You're the superstar. It didn't make sense for Shoyo to sleep in the guest house yet. He needed to be close by in case Kei needed anything during the night. which he often did. The sterile guest room, which wasn't so sterile anymore, had become Kei's new home. I'm sick of pajamas. I never wear them. And I'm sick of this fucking thing on my arm. He raised his cast, trying to make a point. But it only caused him to wince in pain. Shoyo gave him a motherly smile. Language. Honey. Kei grabbed his pills off the counter. I learned it from you. He went to the sliding glass door and walked outside. And I want a glass of wine. Shoyo breathed a sigh of relief at the outburst. Kei was so caught up in his own frustrations he hadn't noticed that they were both emotional wrecks. He grabbed a wine glass out of the cupboard, poured sparkling water into it, and set it on the tray. Once lunch was ready, he took the tray outside and set it on the glass table. Kei put his phone down. That was my mother. She says Brandon fucking Cartwright is a spoiled, crazy bitch, but she still, big surprise, desperately wants to meet you. You know, I always try to hide my true self from the viewing audience, but sometimes it just sneaks through. Shoyo sat across the round table from Kei and took a sip of his wine. Kei ignored the joke and frowned at the wine glass on his tray. This doesn't help, he said, picking up the glass. It's still just water. And why do you get wine? Because I'm stuck with you. Check the booze rider in my contract. Shoyo took another sip and forced a smile. Kei scowled back at him. I should have you negotiate my next deal. Nah, I'm a doctor, not a lawyer, at least, not yet. Shoyo rested his wine glass against his lips, trying to hide his smile. He should maybe mention to Kei that his robe had fallen open, revealing a cute little triangle of blonde hair. But he stayed quiet. The following morning, Kei came downstairs fully dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. He almost bumped into Shoyo, who was rounding the corner with a breakfast tray. I was just coming. How did you get dressed by yourself? He looked Kei up and down. You were just coming? Don't be juvenile. That's my thing. Shoyo set the tray down so he could inspect Kei's sling. Your arm must be doing better. Getting a t-shirt on had hurt like a motherfucker. But Kei was sick of all the coddling. He wanted his independence back. I can't be an invalid forever. He stood still while Shoyo adjusted the sling. I still can't button a shirt. Hence the t-shirt. But I zipped up my own pants. Also, I have news. Shoyo's eyes landed on Kei's chest. He could see it under the thin white almost see-through V-neck that was vying for best t-shirt in the world. Shoyo quickly shifted his eyes upward. Huh? News. I have news. Kei bit his lip, trying to hold back a chuckle. Shoyo put a pill in Kei's hand and gave him a glass of orange juice. Take your meds first. Kei downed the pill and the entire glass of juice. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and smiled brightly. We'll have a script by tomorrow and we start filming next week. Shoyo looked like he wanted to jump up and down and scream through the house. But he kept his cool, slowly leading Kei to the sofa to sit down. Tell me everything. Well, they're relieved that I'm not going to hold up production. They liked the pitch. And they loved the idea you had about your character. Harvard Law and all. Shoyo slapped a hand over his mouth. Oh my god. You're kidding me. Kei pulled a piece of paper out of his front pocket. Here's the casting director's info. Your agent needs to call him right away. Shoyo grabbed Kei's shoulders. Kei, I know. I'm excited too. I hope we can pull it off. Pull it off? We're going to kill it. And no matter what happens, you'll see the fake boyfriend thing through to the end? Kei needed to be sure they were still on track with the original plan. He needed to know Shoyo wouldn't bail on him once he had a real acting job. Of course. This is going to be huge for my career. And I'm very grateful. Their eyes locked on one another. Kei seductively said, how grateful. He immediately regretted saying it and looked away. His stomach knotting up with electricity. Just rehearsing for later. He stood up and walked over to the window. Don't we have a doctor's appointment today? Eat your breakfast while I get ready. Kei turned and nodded, noticing the blush on Shoyo's cheeks. Yeah, okay. He'd obviously felt it too. The brief moment of intensity between them. Kei needed to be careful now that he was starting to feel better. Being flirtatious probably wasn't a good idea. They both had far too much on the line to risk having everything blow up in their faces over temporary sexual gratification. Besides, Kay had waited years to be with a man. He could definitely wait a little longer for someone who wasn't a complete pain in the ass. A faint smile formed on his lips. Thinking about how explosive this energy between them would be on camera though. His long-running hit show was about to get a big old shot of sexy. 10. What do you think? Kay turned his head from side to side. You're getting good at this. Shoyo had pulled Kay's blonde hair back and slicked it down with hairspray so it wouldn't move. It was the best they could do without calling in reinforcements. Shoyo set the can of hairspray down with a little more force than necessary. God, I can't wait until you can use your right hand again. That's what he said. Shoyo stared at Kay in the mirror, refusing to crack a smile. Really? With the sex jokes? You're rubbing off on me. I used to be so cultured and well-mannered. My mother would be horrified. According to Tadashi, it was time for their first official foray into the public domain. The bruising around Kay's eye was almost gone. What was left of it? They'd managed to cover with foundation. The scratches had also healed up quite nicely. In fact, if you could ignore the huge cast on his right arm, Kei Tsukihina was starting to look like himself again. Pretty, Shoyo thought. So pretty. Don't worry, you're still very cultured. Shoyo watched with fascination as Kei put the blush brush they'd got from his stylist back in the drawer, adjusting it several times to make sure it lined up perfectly. And I don't even know what that business is. He waved his hand over Kay's drawer full of OCD. But it's my turn to get ready. You have 30 minutes. 35 tops. Kay shouted as Shoyo left the room. 45 minutes later, Shoyo walked into the kitchen wearing a long-sleeved, off-white paisley sheer lace shirt, fitted black slim-fit pants, and leather Chelsea boots. His shirt had the first 2 buttons undone, revealing a silver necklace with a triangle pendant. Ready? Kay looked up from his phone, doing a double take. God. Shoyo filled a glass with water. You can thank your stylist. He set the water and a pain pill on the counter in front of Kay. Tadashi. Kay couldn't find his words. He'd never seen Shoyo this dressed up before. The outfit was sexy as hell, making Kay feel tingly in unmentionable places. He cleared his throat and let his eyes wander up Shoyo's body again. Tadashi wants us at Nobu in Malibu. Plenty of paparazzi there tonight. Do they have oysters? I want oysters. Kay's eyes were stuck on the thin strip of skin peeking out between Shoyo's pants and top. The white top was the perfect contrast to his newly tanned skin due to time spent poolside. I think so. Shoyo grinned. Eyes up here. Once they made eye contact, he chuckled. God, you're so gay. Now, take your pill. He pushed the glass of water across the marble countertop. Kay did what he was told and then held the glass in front of his mouth, trying to hide his grin. Even though it wasn't a date, he felt kind of proud that he'd be with the hottest man in the restaurant. We'll take the Maserati tonight. Fuck yeah, we will. I didn't just spend all that time in front of the mirror for nothing. Shoyo pulled up to the valet at Nobu, feeling a little bit nervous about the attention they would most likely receive. He wasn't the only one dressed to the nines. Kay looked hot as hell in slant gray pants, a sleeveless white button-down shirt that showed off his toned arms. Broken arm or not, he would definitely turn some heads. Shoyo opened his door and was about to get out of the car when he leaned back in. Just friends, right? Kay gave him a quizzical look. I told you, we will never fuck. I know, Kay. I meant for the paparazzi. What are we tonight? You're the director of this show. So direct me. Tell me how close to stand. Where to touch you, or not touch you. Where you know. Kay hesitated as Shoyo stared at him, waiting for an answer. Friends. Just do what a friend would do. Shoyo smirked at him, wondering why that was so hard to say. The valet opened Kay's door and offered his hand. Good evening, sir. Kay pointed at his broken arm and then at Shoyo. He'll help me. Shoyo sighed as he got out and rounded the car. Nurse Fuckington will be right there. By the time they were seated, Kay was still busy trying to explain himself. It's awkward getting out of the car. And you're used to it. You know where to hold me and how to shift your weight so we don't both fall. Do you know how embarrassed I'd be if I fell and someone got a shot of that? Kay threw his napkin on his lap, picking up the menu. I'm having some wine, so just deal with it. Kay was getting a mom glare from Shoyo. Let's just enjoy the atmosphere and the good food. Not to mention this fabulous view. The ocean is right there. Have you even looked at it? Shoyo set his menu down and leaned forward, lowering his voice. You know what I'm going to enjoy tonight? Kay motioned with his head. Look at the damn ocean. I'm going to enjoy watching. Aha, look at the ocean first. Shoyo eyed Kay for a second and then turned to his left to glance across the dining room. Everything from the floor to the tables to the ceiling was made of rich Japanese wood. The room opened up completely to a patio overlooking the ocean, and the sun was just starting to set. Gorgeous. Now, how the hell are you going to eat sushi with chopsticks? Using your left hand? That's what you're going to enjoy watching tonight? Shoyo glanced over Kay's shoulder. That. And Robert De Niro. He's right behind you. Nice guy. He owns the place. And you have an admirer. What? Kay picked up his glass of water and nodded at someone behind Shoyo. That's what I was trying to show you. Genius. Learn to read. Anyway. Studio exec. Shoyo didn't turn to look. He kept his eyes on Kay. Oh, yuck. Let me guess. 60-ish. Portly and balding. Recently divorced. Or maybe still married. Probably owns the very understated white Rolls-Royce parked out front? More like 35. Never been married. To my knowledge. Quite fit. Full head of hair. And if I'm not mistaken, he drives a Tesla. Shoyo tucked his hair behind his ears and clasped his hands together. Are you ready to order? You think I'm fucking with you? Kay whispered loudly. I'm serious. He can't take his eyes off of you. I like spicy tuna. Kay shook his head. I'm not touching that one. So you've mentioned. Shoyo picked the menu up again. And oysters. I want oysters. Your wish is my command. Kay looked for a waiter but didn't see one. He lifted up his cast and reached under it, letting out a frustrated sigh. Something's not right. Shoyo stood up. Let me look at it. He leaned over, giving Kay a perfect view of his chest. You've got the sling all twisted. Do I? Kay's voice sounded so innocent as his eyes raked over Shoyo's body. Stop looking at my tits. Shoyo whispered. You smell so good. What is that? Shoyo untwisted the strap and smoothed it down, making sure his hand grazed Kay's chest. He kissed his head like you would a child and whispered. It's called, we are never going to fuck. Remember? Shoyo sat back down and Kay's eyes widened as he looked past him. Oh, this should be fun. Studio exec coming your way. Kay, so good to see you. How's the arm doing? Shoyo watched as the man kissed Kay's cheek and rested his hand on his good shoulder, giving it a reassuring, though slightly melodramatic, squeeze. It was such a stupid accident. He blushed and smiled nervously, not able to hold the man's gaze. Well, now wasn't this interesting? Shoyo thought. He narrowed his eyes and watched the interaction closely. Was Kay's hand shaking? Were his cheeks getting redder? And was that a nervous little giggle? As soon as you're ready. I know a great sports therapist, the man said. He'll have you back on your mountain bike in no time. Worked wonders on me when I had that rotator cuff nonsense. Kay glanced at Shoyo, suddenly remembering his manners. Jean. This is my friend, Shoyo Hinata. Jean turned to Shoyo and offered his hand. So pleased to meet you, Shoyo. Is there any chance we've met before? Shoyo stood up and took Jean's hand, covering it with both of his. It sure feels like we have. Are you ever in New York? All the time. That must be it then. I'm new to LA. Shoyo's an actor. Kay interjected. He was on Light of Day in New York. And he's about to make his mark here. Well, aren't we lucky? How about I introduce Shoyo to a few friends? Jean suggested, turning toward Kay. You don't mind, do you? Kei seemed surprised by the suggestion but quickly shook his head. Not at all. Shoyo wanted to ask if Kei would be okay while he was gone. But obviously he would be. Order an appetizer? Kei nodded and forced a smile. Yeah. Had Shoyo been gone forever? Or was Kei just imagining it? And what was with Jean stealing him away anyway? And where did they go? Kei had turned away long enough to order an appetizer. And when he turned back, they'd disappeared from Jean's table. Jean had put his hand on Shoyo's lower back as they'd slowly walked away. Like he owned him or something. And once they'd sat at Jean's table, he'd given Shoyo a sip of his wine. That seemed a little too intimate. It was, wasn't it? And knowing Jean, it was probably a $500 bottle of wine. Kei snorted. God, why did Kei care? He shouldn't care. He forced himself to look at his menu, refusing to look back up. It seemed like forever went by before Shoyo slid back into his chair. Sorry. He wanted to show me the patio. It's gorgeous out there. Shoyo looked flushed. And was that red lipstick? Jean was known to wear a little bit of lip stain sometimes. Kei couldn't remember if he'd noticed whether or not Jean had been wearing any. Did he kiss you? Shoyo rolled his eyes. It's courtesy of some French actress sitting at his table. I wasn't expecting the double cheek thing and we kind of collided. Is it everywhere? You mean you accidentally kissed? Because it's. He motioned with his hand, indicating it was on the corner of Shoyo's mouth. Shoyo quickly dabbed his mouth with a napkin. Stop laughing or I won't share the very expensive bottle of red that is being uncorked for us. Care of Jean Strong. Oh, I'm having a glass. Don't even with the mom look. Shoyo glanced back at Jean. Yeah, I need one too. Kei furrowed his brow. Everything okay? Shoyo smiled. Yeah, fine. A bottle for the gentleman. Courtesy of Mr. Strong. The waiter displayed the bottle. And Kei gestured, giving him permission to pour. They both held up their glasses to Jean and gave him a nod of thanks. Kei took a sip and moaned. God, that's good. He missed his daily glass of wine. Coming back to it with a bottle this good was heavenly. He took another sip and swirled the wine in his glass. He's nice. Jean is nice. And handsome. Kei added, his eyes going back to Jean's table. And smart. And has a wicked sense of humor. And very good taste in wine. Shoyo's eyes widened. I see. And the second you break up with your fake boyfriend, you'll be all over that shit? Well, I'm certainly not going to flirt with him right now. With this stupid thing on my arm I have zero sex appeal. Shoyo took another sip of wine as he eyed Kei. Are you fishing for compliments again? Would it be arrogant of me to say I don't have to fish for fucking compliments? Kei snapped back, feeling rather amused by Kei's frequent use of the F word now. Shoyo leaned back in his chair and smiled. Yes. Kei put his glass down and focused on the menu. They don't have oysters. Some problem with the delivery today. What a shame. And we're not even enjoying the view. Kei set the menu back down. He didn't really care what they had for dinner. For some reason, he'd lost his appetite. He turned slightly in his seat and stared out at the water. Shoyo watched him for a moment. Why would I look at the ocean when there's an extremely fuckable man sitting at this table? Kei turned back to him and smirked. Fuckable? Hey, you wanted a compliment. Jean walked back over to their table as he was leaving. So good to see you, Kei. Let's do lunch soon. He turned to Shoyo. You have my number? Shoyo held up the business card. Right here. Good. We'll go out for oysters sometime. Jean said with a wink. Kei cranked his neck around and watched Jean walk away. Well, he's about as subtle as a Mack truck. Shoyo leaned in. He doesn't know you're gay. If he did, well, I wouldn't even exist in his world. Kei couldn't help but smile. See? Now that's a compliment. Shoyo threw his hands in the air. What the hell is wrong with fuckable? That seems like a compliment of the highest order. Kei chuckled as the woman sitting behind Shoyo turned and glared at him. Shoyo covered his mouth with his hands. Sorry, he whispered. Shoyo gave his ticket to the valet and walked back over to Kei. It's going to be a few minutes and there are 2 cameras across the street. What would you like me to do? Kei stepped a little closer. Just stand there, looking like my hot friend. Shoyo stepped even closer. So, you don't want me to run my thumb over that incredibly plump bottom lip? Kei bit his lip, trying to hold back his smile. That would be a bit premature. Don't you think? Yeah, I guess friends don't really do that. Kei looked down at his drab beige sling. Maybe you could bedazzle this piece of shit sling for me, so I don't feel so frumpy. That's a friend thing, isn't it? Shoyo chuckled. What? The chuckle turned into full-on laughter. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is looking at your sling. Your legs, yes. Your amazing eyes, double yes. Your ass, still fuckable? Kei shyly asked. Here we are. Shoyo motioned to the car as it rolled up. And I can't believe you asked me to bedazzle something. Do I look crafty to you? What if I asked you to embroider the word fuck on my sling? Is there a Michael's in Malibu? Shoyo asked while getting a tip for the valet. I'm pretty sure you're the only person to ever utter those words. And no, there isn't. Hobby Lobby? Shoyo tipped the nice young man and then held on to Kei's good arm as he backed into the seat and swung his legs into the car. Once he was settled, Shoyo pulled the seatbelt out enough for Kei to grab it. Or how about one of those Joanne fabric stores? Shoyo didn't wait for an answer. He shut Kei's door and walked around the car, getting in the driver's seat. For someone who wasn't crafty, you sure know where to shop. My mom. Shoyo stopped. He took a deep breath. My mom was crafty. When I was young, she needed something to do when I was working, so she would sit on the set and knit these beautiful afghans. She even sold a few of them to the cast and crew. They were beautiful. Kei put his hand on Shoyo's leg. I wish I could have met her. Yeah, me too. Shoyo put the car in drive and pulled out onto the road. They drove for a while in silence, Kei keeping his hand right where it was. Shoyo finally broke the silence. I'm sorry I haven't talked about her. That doesn't really honor her memory. I need to be better about that. Did she know that you were gay? Kei asked softly. She died when you were 16. So I just wondered. No, I kind of knew I was different. But I didn't have the guts to talk to her about it. It's something I regret. That she never knew the real me. All of me. You were so young. Kei gave Shoyo's leg a gentle squeeze. Do you think they got a good shot of us? Shoyo needed to change the subject. I hope so. Well, even if they didn't. Shoyo took Kei's hand in his. It was nice having dinner with you. Kei smiled. Yeah, it was. Shoyo followed Kei into his bedroom like he did every night, ready to help him get ready for bed. Kei had kicked off his shoes at the garage door, but he was still wearing pants and fiddling with the top button of his shirt. Their eyes caught in the mirror and Shoyo hesitated. Had the temperature in the room just skyrocketed? Was that a heated blush slowly creeping up his chest? Shit. It was. It shouldn't have felt different. Not more than a couple of hours ago. Shoyo had buttoned up this same shirt. You really did look beautiful tonight. His voice softer than he'd meant for it to be. Shoyo didn't dare look up, keeping his eyes on the buttons. He gently undid them. Maybe it was the ride home that had Shoyo feeling things he shouldn't feel. At one point, Kei had shifted in his seat, trying to find a comfortable position for his arm, which caused his shirt to ride up, showing off his mouth-watering abs. Shoyo found himself wanting to reach over and push the shirt up a little farther. If Kei were his real boyfriend, he would have slid his hand down to Kei's leg, and left it there, his fingers gently tickling Kei's inner thigh. Thanks. You looked amazing too. Their eyes locked again. Why did it feel so different? So dangerous? Was it because they'd just been on their first date? Not really a date, though. Just two friends having dinner together. Shoyo broke the eye contact and focused on his task, sliding his fingers from one button to the next. He gently parted the shirt and dropped his hands to his sides, fearing what else he'd touch if he didn't control himself. Sexy, Shoyo thought. So sexy. Anything else? He quickly asked, trying to hide the fact that his heart was racing. Kei shook his head. No. Okay, then. Shoyo took a step back. Good night. Night. Lunging forward would be a bad idea. Taking K in his arms. Kissing his neck. His shoulder. Letting the shirt fall to the floor. K would gasp at the touch. He wouldn't know what to do at first and how to react. He might even enjoy the feel of Shoyo's lips on his neck. But he would quickly come to his senses. Shoyo wouldn't lift K onto the bathroom sink and make love to him. He wouldn't take K to places he'd never been before. He wouldn't hear K's bedroom voice begging him for more. Don't stop. Sho. Don't fucking stop. He wouldn't watch himself in the mirror as K rode his fingers. K. Naked and sweaty and breathless. And oh so sated. Shoyo wouldn't get on his knees and bury his face between K's legs. He wouldn't taste him for the first time and hear K moan out his pleasure. He wouldn't stay there, teasing and licking until K came again. This time, shouting profanities, mixed with Shoyo's name and, of course, God's. No, that wouldn't happen. K would push him away before that ever happened. We have a contract, K would say. And it doesn't include this. And it didn't. Of course. That would make Shoyo. He closed the bedroom door behind him and stood in the hall for a moment. His chest heaving. He felt a little unsteady on his legs, so he leaned against the wall. He touched his cheeks to see if they were hot. Shit. They're on fire. He slowly made his way to his room and stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Staring at himself. You can't fall for him. He whispered to himself.